I wasn't always the kind of guy who double-checks his bank account every morning. Honestly, I was more of a buy snacks now, check overdraft later kind of man. Life wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. Pharmacy work paid the bills. My dog, Nova, greeted me every evening like I was royalty. And Vanessa? She made life colorful. She had this way of turning ordinary days into little celebrations. Tuesday meant wine. Thursday, homemade pizza and Shark Tank marathons. We laughed, we lived, well, I thought we loved. Looking back, I think I was in love with the idea of her confident, charming, always just out of reach. Vanessa moved in 6 months after we started dating. Only temporary, she said. My lease is up, and your place feels like home anyway. I didn't think twice. We lived in a high-rise downtown fancy enough to impress, strict enough that even our mailman wore a tie. The condo board had rules, forms, fees, and secret gossip networks stronger than the FBI. At first, it felt like a dream. She brought candles, fancy bath bombs, and a pink velvet chair that clashed with everything I owned. But I let it happen. That's what love is, right? Compromise. Or so I thought. It started small, missing Amazon packages. Uber Eats showing up for Vanessa when I didn't order anything. A mysterious monthly wellness coaching charge on our joint card. I didn't want to believe it. I blamed the app. I blamed my own memory. I even blamed the condo Wi-Fi for glitching out. I was a fool in love, or maybe just a fool. But here's the thing, I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I took notes, quietly, methodically, because somewhere deep inside, something told me this wasn't just a string of innocent mistakes. No, this was a pattern, and I don't do well with patterns unless I'm the one setting them. Things unraveled slowly, not dramatically, not in flames or screaming matches, just quietly. Like the sound of wallpaper peeling off behind a picture frame, you never move. Vanessa started staying out late, client dinners, she claimed. She was a branding consultant, though oddly, I never saw a single client. No invoices, no laptop charger in sight, but she wore heels to the grocery store and took calls in a whisper behind closed doors. A little off, but not quite enough to scream liar. Then came the credit card bill. I opened it on accident, or so I told myself. Truth was, something had been gnawing at me for weeks. The total hit me like a brick. Hotel stays, Uber rides, spa visits, all in her name, all on our card. One charge at a rooftop bar stood out. 11:43 p.m. The same night she'd told me she was mentoring a client via Zoom. I didn't say a word. Instead, I looped in Tyler. He's the kind of friend who wears flip-flops in January and somehow still gets away with it. Laid back, but razor sharp when it counts. I laid it all out, the receipts, the late nights, the weird Venmo notes like thanks for everything. He didn't laugh. He just said, "You want to play dumb or play smart?" "Smart," I said. We started with the basics, social media. Vanessa wasn't slick, not even close. A tagged photo on a boat, a caption from some guy named Derek that read, "Nothing better than island vibes in my girl." It had posted at 9:12 a.m. while she was supposedly at yoga across town. Strike one, or maybe strike 12. I'd lost count. My sister Jasmine, yeah, that Jasmine, the Harvard Law alum with a resting "don't try me" face, jumped in when I showed her the credit card history. "Half of this is fraud," she said flatly, "and the rest is just rude." I couldn't help but laugh. Mr. Carter, our old neighbor down the hall who used to be a judge, overheard bits and pieces. Next thing I knew, he was offering legal tips over bourbon on his balcony. "You've got receipts. You've got motive. She played you, son. Question is, what are you going to do about it?" And right then, I knew. Vanessa thought she was untouchable, but she didn't realize who she was playing. I may have been quiet, but I wasn't blind. And I sure as hell wasn't done. If there's one thing pharmacy school taught me besides how to pronounce 20-letter drug names, it's how to notice patterns. The human body doesn't just break overnight. It gives you clues. Same goes for people. And Vanessa? She'd been dropping clues like a leaky faucet. The difference now was I'd stopped patching them up and started collecting them, building the blueprint. It began with a spreadsheet. Boring, right? Not when it's color-coded with betrayal. I made a folder on my laptop called Wellness Audit, a little inside joke for myself. Inside were receipts, screenshots, social media posts, email drafts, all neatly categorized, dates, times, lies. Tyler and I worked late a few nights after I closed the pharmacy. He was the kind of guy who handled breakups by making memes, so I knew he could help with visual documentation. His masterpiece? A side-by-side image of Vanessa at yoga class, and her tagged at a bottomless mimosa brunch with Derek, time-stamped within 10 minutes of each other. Bro, this is beyond cheating, Tyler muttered. This is brand-level fraud. Jasmine took it a step further. She helped draft a timeline and recommended I avoid any confrontation until the plan was airtight. You're not here to yell. You're here to win. Win. I hadn't thought of it like that. Not revenge, not justice, just winning, quietly, legally, elegantly. So, I stayed calm. I smiled when Vanessa brought home sushi from a place I knew she went to with Derek. I nodded when she claimed she'd spent the afternoon working on a client's website, even though the site hadn't been updated since 2021. I even pretended to believe her when she said we should open a new savings account together, just for shared goals. That one almost made me laugh out loud. The evidence piles up. It turned out that our condo's building management system had more data than the CIA. Access logs, guest pass entries, garage usage, all tied to individual resident codes. Mr. Carter helped me submit a formal data request. I had everything within 24 hours. Vanessa's fob had been used to sign Derek into our building 3 separate times while I was at work. One entry was right before she texted me, missing you. Classic. I set up a small nanny cam in the living room legal in our state, thanks to Mr. Carter's wisdom. All above board. I told myself I wouldn't look unless I had to. Spoiler, I had to. She wasn't even discreet about it. Sitting on the couch, drinking wine, barefoot, with Derek in my hoodie. It didn't feel like heartbreak. It felt like detachment. Like the final page in a book I'd been trying to love but could finally close. Turning strategy into action. My goal wasn't to scream, "I caught you," in the middle of the night, like some bad reality show. It was to leave no room for denial. With Jasmine's help, I drafted a formal letter outlining Vanessa's financial misuse. Attached were copies of the charges, a list of shared accounts, and a proposal for repayment. Clean, no emotion, just facts. I emailed it to her while she was out running errands. She texted me 10 minutes later with just, "We need to talk." I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded the email to the building's legal rep. Vanessa had violated several terms of her temporary residency, inviting unauthorized guests, misusing security access, and committing what was essentially digital fraud on our joint finances. By the time she returned, her key fob had already been deactivated. The ice-cold confrontation. She walked in through the front desk with building security beside her. I was in the kitchen, calmly sipping coffee. Jasmine was on speakerphone. Tyler was seated at the island, flipping through a manila folder with our favorite screenshots. "You planned this?" Vanessa snapped, eyes wide. "Planned?" I shrugged. "More like documented." She looked at Tyler, then at me. "You're seriously kicking me out over some stupid dates and drinks?" Jasmine's voice cut in from the speaker. "Hi, Vanessa. Ryan's legal counsel here. This isn't about drinks. It's about financial misconduct, property misuse, and fraudulent access. You have 48 hours to vacate." Vanessa's face twisted. She wasn't used to losing control. She tried to pivot, plead, negotiate, even cry. But this wasn't a debate. This isn't personal, I told her. It's just math. You took more than you gave. The balance tipped. She called me petty, said I was dramatic, said I was overreacting to a phase. Phase? That made Tyler laugh so hard he had to leave the room. Exit stage left. She was gone in 36 hours. I didn't gloat. I didn't post anything online. I didn't even tell most of our neighbors, though Mr. Carter gave me a knowing nod in the hallway the next day. Vanessa didn't leave a note, but she did leave behind that pink velvet chair. The one I hated. The one that clashed with everything. I had the doorman put it in the lobby with a sticky note. Free to a good home, especially if YOURE honest. I thought that would be the end of it. But karma, it seems, had a few more tricks up its sleeve. I wasn't planning on it going viral. That was never the goal. But when you serve someone poetic justice with a side of receipts, sometimes the internet just eats it up. It all started when Tyler uploaded a TikTok. He didn't use names, didn't show faces, just screenshots, text overlays, and dramatic music, something orchestral, moody, with a slow build up to the drop. He titled it, "She Thought She Was Finessing a Pharmacist." Plot twist. He studied receipts instead of pills. By the time I saw it, it had 200,000 views. By the next morning, it had 1,000,000. I asked him why he posted it. He just shrugged and said, "Bro, it's therapy. Let the people judge." The comments were, "Something else. Justice tastes better when it's iced and organized." I'm invested. Did she cry? Blink twice if she cried. The pink chair detail sent me, I probably should have been mad. But honestly, it was the first time in weeks I felt light. Meanwhile, in real life, while TikTok did its thing, the real-world consequences were still rolling in. Vanessa's response to the letter had been short and bitter. "You're cold. I never expected this from you. No apology, no remorse, just guilt-tripping and gaslighting, her greatest hits. But karma? Karma has a memory like a steel trap." Jasmine had submitted the evidence packet to the condo board, including Vanessa's unauthorized use of the building, financial abuse, and security violations. They weren't thrilled. There's something about ex-boyfriends exposing shady tenants with a 28-slide PDF that really mobilizes community leadership. They banned her from the building. Permanently. Mr. Carter, who had a friend on the board, said it was one of the fastest decisions they'd ever made. "I haven't seen them move this quickly since someone grilled indoors and triggered the sprinkler system," he said with a smirk. Then came the real twist: Vanessa's TikTok alter ego. Something she'd never told me about was discovered by someone in the comments. Her influencer account, different name, same face. Turns out she'd been documenting her healing journey from a toxic relationship with a jealous man, aka me. Problem is, she didn't change her story or her timeline. So when people cross-referenced her videos with Tyler's receipts, it blew up. Someone stitched the two stories together with a big flashing "liar detected." The internet turned on her faster than a HOA board at a barbecue with the wrong fence color. Suddenly, her comment sections were full of, "Girl, you stole his hoodie and his groceries? Imagine being this loud and this wrong. He kicked you out because you committed fraud, not because he's toxic." She went private in less than a day. Closure. My style Tyler wanted to keep the TikTok series going. He had ideas, merch, dramatic voiceovers, maybe even a podcast. I told him to pump the brakes. "I'm not here to be famous," I said. "I just wanted her gone. Truthfully, I didn't need revenge anymore. I already had everything I wanted. My apartment back, my peace of mind, my dog not growling at the door after midnight. I replaced the pink chair with a floor lamp. Clean lines, no velvet. Jasmine approved. And then I did something I hadn't done in months. I went out. Just me, a coffee shop, and a crossword puzzle. No distractions, no chaos. Just the subtle joy of starting over. That's the thing they don't tell you about revenge. The best kind isn't loud. It isn't explosive. It's quiet. It's living well, while the other person spirals into the consequences they built for themselves. Vanessa called once. Just once. It was a week later. Blocked number. Left a voicemail. I don't know why you did this to me. I thought you loved me. I didn't respond. I didn't even listen to the full message. I just hit delete. Some things don't need closure. Some things are the closure. You always think you'll feel something more when the storm ends. Maybe fireworks. Maybe vindication. A movie-worthy slow clap echoing in the background. But mostly, it's just silence. And I mean that in the best way possible. Back to stillness. The days that followed were oddly peaceful. The kind of peace that feels foreign at first, like waking up in a hotel and forgetting where you are. No doors slamming at 1 a.m. No suspicious perfume lingering in the hallway. No half-baked excuses about networking events that smelled suspiciously like tequila. I started waking up early again, not because I had to, just because I wanted to. Nova and I took long walks, something we hadn't done properly since Vanessa moved in. Dogs notice more than we give them credit for. She didn't bark at the elevator anymore. I rearranged the apartment, moved the couch to face the window, got rid of the candle collection that always gave me a headache but I kept because it tied the room together. Spoiler, it didn't. I painted a wall. Just one. Navy blue. Jasmine said it was bold. Tyler said it looked like a moody podcast studio. I didn't care. I loved it. Because for the first time in a long time, this place felt like mine again. Conversations that actually mattered. Jasmine dropped by one weekend with a bottle of wine and 2 mismatched mugs. I figured you don't have real wine glasses anymore, she said, tossing her jacket onto the back of a chair. How are you doing, really? I shrugged. Lighter. We talked not about Vanessa, but about everything else. About how Tyler was suddenly TikTok famous, and how Mr. Carter got invited to speak on a local HOA panel titled Leadership Through Common Sense. Jasmine raised her mug. To making chaos productive. To never dating a con artist again, I added. Clink. One last surprise. 2 weeks later, I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single note. You didn't have to humiliate me. And underneath that, but I guess I deserved it. No signature. But I recognized the handwriting. I'd seen it on grocery lists, post-its stuck to my monitor, and that one birthday card where she misspelled soulmate. I stared at it for a moment. Then I folded it neatly, walked it to the trash, and let it go. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't revenge. It was closure. Real, boring, beautiful closure. What I gained, people always frame revenge stories as losses, lost time, lost love, lost trust. But here's what they forget to mention. You gain yourself back. I'd been in a fog for months, maybe years, swallowing doubts, rationalizing red flags, second-guessing my gut until it stopped whispering altogether. Now, I trusted it again. I trusted me again. That was the real victory. Not the TikToks, not the receipts, not the public downfall or poetic justice. Just the quiet confidence of someone who chose peace over drama, facts over feelings, and self-worth over someone else's broken promises. A new kind of start. I started dating again slowly. No pressure, no pink flags, let alone red ones. No branding consultants with secret second phones. I met someone at the pharmacy. Of all places, she had a prescription for antihistamines and a tote bag with a cartoon corgi on it. We laughed about how we both hated cold brew. She didn't ask for my Instagram. She asked what my favorite book was. It wasn't love at first sight, but it was honest. And that's more than enough for me these days. Final thoughts. If you told me 3 months ago that I'd be here alone, happy, and somehow calm, I would have laughed. Laughed hard. But it turns out, sometimes the best kind of revenge isn't about the explosion. It's about the echo. The kind that lingers in the air long after the dust has settled. The kind that whispers, "You didn't break me. You freed me." Story 2. They say hindsight is 20/20ths, but even now, looking back, I don't know how I missed the warning signs. My name is Elise. I'm 30 now, and if I had to describe the last decade of my life in one sentence, it'd probably be, I built my entire future on a lie, then had to learn how to live again. I met Jacob when I was barely 20, and he was 24. We grew up in the same neighborhood. He lived 2 streets over and was that guy in high school. You know, charming, athletic, always surrounded by people. I was just a freshman when he graduated, and yeah, I had a schoolgirl crush. Everyone knew it, including him, but nothing ever happened back then. He went off to a fancy engineering school out of state, and I grew out of the crush like most teenage girls do when real life starts happening. By the time I was in college, I hadn't thought about Jacob in years. Then one night, I was out with my roommates at a rooftop bar downtown. I was sipping on something way too sweet when one of them nudged me. "Hey, that guy in the corner keeps staring at you." I turned, tipsy and curious, and my eyes met his. I didn't recognize him at first. He looked familiar, but more rugged than the boy I remembered. He approached eventually and said, "You remind me of someone I used to know, from school." When he said her name, Elise, I realized he hadn't forgotten me either. I laughed it off, thinking it was a flirty coincidence. But after that night, we kept talking, then texting, then dating. By the time I was 22, we were inseparable. When Jacob proposed a year later, it felt like fate. We'd both landed stable jobs. He was already on a managerial track at his firm, and I had just started a marketing position I loved. We got married in a small ceremony with our closest family and friends. It felt like everything was aligning perfectly. It wasn't. At first, we were happy. Or maybe I just believed we were. I was so caught up in the comfort of being settled that I didn't notice the cracks forming beneath the surface. Jacob wanted kids early, like right after the honeymoon early. He'd always dreamed of a big family. I wanted that too, eventually. But I figured we'd wait a couple of years, travel a bit, grow into adulthood together. He wasn't on the same page. Out of love, or maybe guilt, I gave in. We started trying, thinking it'd be quick. It wasn't. Month after month, disappointment built. At first, we laughed it off. Just bad timing, we said. But 6 months in, I started getting anxious. 9 months in, I begged Jacob to see a fertility specialist with me. He brushed it off, said we were fine, that I was just overthinking it. Eventually, I quit my job, his suggestion. He said less stress might help, and financially we were okay. I hated giving it up, but I was desperate. I thought maybe, just maybe, that would fix things. It didn't. A year later, test after test led to one crushing result. We were incompatible biologically. No specific problem, just an unfortunate match. I could get pregnant, just not with him. You'd think something that out of our control wouldn't wreck us, but it did. Jacob changed. He shut down emotionally, blamed me, not outright, but in little comments. His affection turned into silence. We barely spoke. He slept in the guest room. I started wondering if love was ever really there or if I'd just wanted it to be. We tried therapy. It helped for a while. I got another job. We made plans again. It almost felt like we were healing. Then the pandemic hit. We were stuck in the house, both working remotely, trying to figure out this new normal. One afternoon, Jacob said he was going out for groceries. I remember telling him not to forget the eggs. He never came back. Instead, an hour later, I opened the door to a toddler holding a bag and a note. The boy looked up at me and said, "Mommy and Daddy told me to give you this." My stomach dropped. The letter was from Jacob. His handwriting, no mistaking it. The note explained everything. He'd been having an affair since we started trying to conceive. Said he felt emotionally disconnected and unfulfilled. The woman he'd been seeing got pregnant, and he took that as a sign. Divine intervention, he called it. They had a son, this boy. But now things weren't working out between them, so they left. Not together, not with their kid. They left him Caleb at my doorstep. And Jacob? He said he wasn't coming back. Said I'd be better at raising him. I didn't cry right away. I just stood there, paralyzed. Then Caleb, this tiny human with no idea what was going on, offered me a water bottle from his backpack, like he could tell I needed something, anything. And just like that, I broke. But even in that storm of emotions, shock, betrayal, grief, I looked at Caleb and felt compassion. He was the product of my husband's infidelity, yes, but he was also a child, a sweet, innocent, abandoned child. None of this was his fault. I asked him his name. He said it proudly. Caleb, just 2 years old. I don't know what clicked in me that day, but I knew I couldn't turn him away. No matter how much it hurt, I couldn't be the next person to abandon him. And so, I didn't. I didn't sleep that first night. I just lay there, listening to Caleb's soft breathing from the other room, feeling like the world had cracked open and I was free falling with no end in sight. I kept replaying Jacob's letter in my head, how cold it sounded, how matter-of-fact he'd been, as if leaving his own child with me, like handing off a gym bag, was somehow a kind gesture. And yet, there Caleb was, this tiny, sleepy, innocent boy who had no clue what was happening, no clue that his parents had vanished, no clue that he was now, somehow, mine. I wasn't a mom. I mean, I wanted to be, once, but not like this, not without warning, not with someone else's baby dropped on my doorstep like a broken Amazon package. But something inside me wouldn't let me shut the door on him. Maybe it was the fact that I had once dreamed of a family. Maybe it was the look in his eyes, like he was already used to being passed around. I spent the next few days in a fog. I called every number Jacob used to have, texted him, emailed, nothing. He had wiped himself off the grid. I checked Caleb's bag, bare essentials. A few diapers, one stuffed animal, snacks, no medication, no emergency contacts, not even a proper ID. I called my lawyer next. Is this even legal? I asked. Can someone just leave a child like this? She was horrified, told me what Jacob did might actually qualify as abandonment, and urged me to document everything. She also said that since I had taken Caleb in, and there was no other guardian stepping up, I might have grounds to adopt if I chose to. At first, I didn't know if I could. I didn't know if I should. I called child services just to be sure. I told them what happened, asked what would happen if I couldn't keep him. The woman on the phone was kind, but honest. He'd go into the system, she said. And in a pandemic, chances of getting placed fast or well were slim. I looked at Caleb, his dimpled grin, the way he clung to my leg when strangers came near. And I knew I couldn't do that to him. I wouldn't do that to him. So I made a plan. I'd take care of him, at least until I could find someone from his biological family, his mother. If she even still wanted him. I didn't know her name, didn't know what she looked like, where she worked. Jacob never told me anything about her, just that he'd been cheating. So I started digging. I contacted Jacob's old coworkers. No one had seen him since the lockdown began. A few knew he had some personal issues, but no one knew about a girlfriend, let alone a kid. I tried reaching out to his extended family, no one picked up. Some numbers were disconnected. It was like he had scrubbed every piece of his life clean. Weeks passed, then months. And in that time, something strange started to happen. I fell in love with that little boy. He'd wake me up with his messy curls and sleepy face, crawl into my bed with his blanket, and whisper, "Mama, is it morning yet?" The first time he called me Mama, I nearly broke down. He didn't mean it at first, he just mimicked what other kids at daycare called their parents. But over time, it became real, to both of us. I taught him how to ride a tricycle, sat with him through meltdowns, held his hand through every nightmare, cooked him grilled cheese when he was too fussy to eat anything else. He drew me stick figures and taped them to the fridge. I framed them, He wasn't just a kid, he was my kid. And once I realized that, I didn't hesitate anymore. 6 months after Jacob disappeared, I filed the paperwork to legally adopt Caleb. It felt surreal walking into the courthouse. I was nervous they'd ask me why I was doing this, or why his own parents weren't around. But I had the note, the texts, the voicemail he left when he chickened out of even saying goodbye in person. My lawyer said it was a slam dunk case. Abandonment, clear and simple. 2 months later, it was official. Caleb became Caleb Carter, my son, in every way that mattered. And you know what? Life got good. For the first time in what felt like forever, I was okay. I had my job back. My boss had let me work remotely while I adjusted to parenthood. Caleb had started preschool. He made friends, brought home macaroni art. He was thriving, and somehow, so was I. I rebuilt myself piece by piece. I stopped blaming myself for Jacob's betrayal. I let go of the guilt, the shame, the hurt. I had something better now. I had Caleb. Even my parents, who were initially skeptical, "You're really keeping his kid," came around. They saw how happy Caleb made me, how he'd light up the room, ask my dad to read to him, or help my mom bake cookies. It was hard to deny the bond we had. We were a little family. It wasn't what I planned, not even close, but it was ours. And for a while it felt like the worst was behind us. Until Jacob came back. It happened on a Thursday. One of those cloudy, quiet afternoons when you're not expecting anything. Caleb was at school, and I was working from home, headphones on, focused, sipping coffee that had already gone cold. Then came the knock. I remember standing in the kitchen, frozen. It wasn't the mail carrier. It wasn't a neighbor. Something about it made my stomach twist before I even reached the door. When I opened it, there he was, Jacob. Same smug face, same eyes that once promised me forever. But this time, there was something else in them. Desperation, maybe, or guilt. It took me a second to process it. My body went stiff. My voice didn't work right away. He said my name like he had every right to. I didn't invite him in, but he walked in anyway. I was too stunned to stop him. Not scared exactly, just caught off guard. He'd vanished for nearly 4 years. No calls, no texts, no birthday cards for the kid he left behind. And now here he was, acting like this was just an awkward reunion. "Where's Caleb?" he asked. That was when the adrenaline kicked in. I stepped between him and the hallway. "You don't get to ask that." He raised his hands like he was the victim. "I just want to see my son." Those words made my skin crawl. "Your son?" I repeated, laughing bitterly. "You mean the boy you dumped on my doorstep with a diaper bag and a goodbye note?" Jacob had the audacity to look hurt. He tried spinning it, said he'd been overwhelmed, that his girlfriend at the time didn't want 2 kids, that he figured I'd take care of things. I didn't say much. I didn't want to. I needed him gone before Caleb came home, before any of this touched him. "I don't know where he is," I lied, "and I'm not interested in helping you find him." Jacob's face changed at that. Less sorrow, more calculation. Like he hadn't expected me to stand so firm. Maybe he thought I'd be relieved to see him. Maybe he thought I missed him. But I had built a new life. Without him, because of him. He left without much more than a huff. But something in me knew that was only round one. I called a friend of mine, Jen, a coworker who's become like a sister, and asked if she could grab Caleb from school. Her daughter's in the same class, and I didn't want to risk Jacob following me there. She didn't ask too many questions, just said, "Of course," like it was the most natural thing. When she dropped him off that night, she gave me a look that said, "Whatever's going on, I've got you." I didn't have to explain. Over the next few days, I kept my guard up, checked the locks twice, watched the street from the window like a movie character in a crime drama. I hated it living like that, but I wasn't about to risk Caleb's safety. Then came the second visit. This time, he didn't knock. He banged. I didn't answer, but he shouted from the porch, "I'm not leaving until I see my son." That was it. I opened the door just enough to make eye contact and said, You lost that right. The day you walked out. He tried the pity act again. Said he'd made mistakes. That he was trying to do better. I asked him if better meant abandoning a toddler and pretending he didn't exist. He begged to see Caleb, just once. Promised he wouldn't fight me, just wanted to talk to him. But I knew better. This wasn't about love. This was about guilt, ego, control, and maybe something even worse, regret dressed up like redemption. I told him if he didn't leave, I'd call the police. That got his attention. He left, muttering something about lawyers and not over. But I didn't panic. Not this time, because I had already done what he never thought I'd do. I adopted Caleb. Legally, I was his mother. Permanently. I had every document, every signed paper, every message Jacob ever sent. His text saying he was done. His letter leaving the boy behind. I sent copies of it all to my lawyer, just in case. A few days later, I sat Caleb down. He was 5 by then. Old enough to understand a little, but still too young to carry the weight of everything. I told him, sometimes people who leave try to come back, but not everyone who says they care deserves to be in your life. He looked at me with those wide, honest eyes. Are we okay? I pulled him into my arms. We're better than okay. I'm always here. No one's taking you away. I promise. And I meant it. Weeks passed. Jacob didn't show up again. Not right away. But I knew better than to believe that silence meant peace. I kept everything closed, my lawyer on standby. Caleb's school informed. My neighbors aware. I even had Jen ready to step in at a moment's notice. It felt like I was holding my breath, waiting for the wind to shift again. And it did. It was a Sunday. Caleb was home, painting dinosaurs on the patio with washable markers. I was watching him through the screen door, smiling without meaning to how he hummed to himself, how his little feet kicked like drums when he got excited. He was my whole heart walking around outside of me. Then came the knock. It wasn't loud this time, just sharp, controlled. I opened the door and saw him again, Jacob. He looked different, pale, a little thinner. There was no smugness this time, no false confidence, just tired eyes and a forced smile. I just want to talk, he said, voice low. I told you already. There's nothing left to say. But he was persistent. Please, just 5 minutes. Something in me, the part that always wanted to know why, let him in. But only into the foyer. My arms were still crossed. I didn't move far from the door. He started rambling about how he messed up, how things went downhill after he left, how his affair partner, his wife, now ex-wife, took their second child and disappeared after an accident he caused. He said it was a DUI. He lost everything. The kid, the job, his fertility. Doctors told him he'd never father another child again. He looked at me like he expected me to feel sorry for him. But all I could think about was Caleb. He kept going, said he wanted another chance, that Caleb was his only shot at being a father again, that he was ready now, ready to step up. My body went cold. You're not doing this, I said. Not now. Not ever. Elise, he pleaded. He's my son. No, I said, steady as stone. He was your son. Then you left. You made a decision. You didn't hesitate. You didn't look back. You handed over your blood and walked into the wind. His voice cracked. I thought I was doing what was best. I wasn't ready. And you think I was? I snapped. You think I asked for this? You think it was easy picking up the pieces of your cowardice and turning them into a life for him? He fell silent. I could feel the storm in my chest rising, but I kept my voice steady. You left him. I stayed. That's what makes a parent. That's what makes me his mother. He broke then, started crying. Said he regretted everything. Said he'd do anything to be in Caleb's life. But regret doesn't rewrite history. It doesn't unmake pain. You don't get to pop back in when it's convenient for you, I said. You don't get a piece of him now, because you're lonely. He didn't fight me after that, just stood there, wrecked. And for a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But then I remembered the note, the silence, the scared little boy with a backpack too heavy for his size. You need help, Jacob. And you need to find it far away from us. I opened the door and pointed out. He looked like he wanted to argue, maybe even cry again. But I was done carrying his burden. I was done cleaning up his mess. He left. And this time, I locked the door behind him. That night, I told Caleb a story. One of the simple ones he liked about a fox who lived in the forest alone until he found a cub wandering in the dark. The fox took him in, raised him, loved him, even though they didn't look the same. And the cub? He grew strong, happy, brave. Is that about us? He asked, eyes bright. I smiled. Maybe. Then I tucked him in, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "You're safe, always." A week later, the restraining order was finalized. My lawyer said it was airtight. Jacob had no claim, no standing, no rights, and I had more than enough evidence to keep it that way. He hasn't come back since, and every day that passes, the weight gets a little lighter. I go to work. Caleb goes to school. We eat dinner together, tell jokes, watch cartoons, fold laundry, paint more dinosaurs. Life isn't perfect, but it's full. And most importantly, it's ours. Sometimes I still get questions. Why didn't you just give the kid up? Why take in someone else's child? My answer is always the same. Because he was never just someone else's. Because when life knocked on my door and tried to break me, I didn't close it, I opened it. And on the other side was my son. My Caleb. Story 3. I never felt like I was missing anything. I'm 25 now. But when I was 6, I was adopted by two of the kindest, most grounded people I've ever known, Alan and Michelle. They were just hitting their late 20s when they took me in. And from day one, I was theirs. No half measures, no lingering reminders that I wasn't biologically theirs. They loved me hard, consistently, and without hesitation. My childhood wasn't clouded by my adoption. I didn't ask many questions, and they didn't push any information on me. All I knew was that social services removed me from my biological family due to neglect. That one word, neglect, was enough. I didn't dig deeper because I didn't feel the need. I had a family, a good one. That was enough for me. But curiosity has a way of creeping in slowly, like fog rolling across a field. A few months back, I sent in one of those home DNA kits. I wasn't expecting anything groundbreaking, maybe some ancestry insights, a few fun facts about my genetics, perhaps a clue about medical predispositions. That was it. No part of me was hoping for a reunion or to track down long-lost relatives. My life was whole, and this was just me satisfying a distant curiosity. When I got the notification that my results were ready, I almost forgot I'd even done the test. It had been about 2 months. I opened the app half distractedly, expecting to scroll through pie charts and bar graphs. But instead, right at the top of the screen was a match. Close family match. Biological mother, her name was listed there, Erica. And beside her name was a message. I can't believe I found you. I've waited so long for this day. I've missed you every single day since you were taken. You have a little brother who's so excited to meet you. Please, can we talk? I want you to know your story. I sat with that message for hours. It didn't feel real. It didn't make sense. She was a complete stranger to me, and yet here she was, writing as if we had some unbreakable bond. I wasn't angry or emotional, just unsettled. There was no tug at my heartstrings, no wave of joy, just confusion, discomfort, and this weird pressure, like I was being pulled into something I never asked for. I carefully drafted a reply, trying not to be cruel. I told her I appreciated her message, but I wasn't looking for a relationship. I was only curious about my medical history and the circumstances surrounding my removal from her care. That was it. I didn't need or want a family reunion, she replied not long after. She said she'd be willing to tell me everything on one condition, that we meet in person at a cafe to talk things through. That phrase felt more like a trap than an invitation. I wasn't comfortable with that and told her as much. I offered a phone call instead. I tried to stay respectful but firm. Her response? A flat-out no. She refused to share anything with me unless we met face to face. It felt manipulative, like she was dangling answers in front of me, using them as bait to get what she wanted. I wasn't okay with that. When I vented to my best friend Jules, I expected support. Instead, she told me I was being unfair. You opened the door by doing the DNA test, she said. It's not unreasonable for her to want a relationship now. You're kind of leading her on by saying you're not interested. That stung. Jules has never been adopted, so maybe she didn't understand how deeply complicated all of this felt. But her response made me feel worse, like I was the bad guy for setting a boundary. Like I owed Erica something just because we shared DNA. Still, a small part of me wondered, was I being too cold? I tried again, messaging Erica with more context. I explained that I wasn't shutting the door forever, but I wasn't ready now. I reiterated that all I wanted were some answers. I told her I wasn't rejecting her as a person. I just wasn't ready to have a stranger parachute into my life and call herself my mother. Her response was somehow even worse than before. She said I was selfish, that I had no right to play games with her heart. She accused me of being ungrateful and heartless. That message was the final straw. I decided then and there that I didn't want any contact going forward. I didn't trust her, and I didn't like being emotionally manipulated. The whole thing left a bad taste in my mouth, like I'd stumbled into a room expecting to read a book and found myself in the middle of someone else's unresolved trauma instead. I was starting to feel the weight of it, so I did what I should have done in the first place. I talked to Alan and Michelle. They were calm, as always, patient. I told them everything about the DNA test, Erica's messages, her demands. They listened without judgment. When I finished, my dad just said, "You know you don't owe anyone anything, right?" And I needed to hear that. My mom said, "You don't have to chase a past that hurt you. We're your family. You've always been ours." We sat there in silence for a bit, and I realized how lucky I was. Erica might have given birth to me, but Alan and Michelle gave me life, and I wasn't going to forget that. After that last message from Erica, I sat with everything for a while. I didn't rush to respond, didn't feel like I needed to. I just needed space. It's weird how quickly something that started with a simple DNA test turned into this emotional tug of war. I spent a few days thinking about whether I should send one final message, something to bring closure, set the record straight. Part of me felt like I already had. I'd made it clear where I stood. But another part of me wanted to speak plainly, to say what I really thought without sugarcoating it. So I wrote her one last time. I told her that the way she responded, refusing to give me information, unless I met her in person, felt manipulative. I said I didn't appreciate being emotionally blackmailed into a meeting I never asked for. That kind of behavior made it clear we weren't on the same page, and it only pushed me further away. I let her know I wasn't interested in continuing contact. Not now, maybe not ever. It wasn't angry, just honest. I hit send, and then I deleted the app. The weight lifted almost instantly. Still, the whole situation left me with this uncomfortable heaviness I couldn't shake. I kept replaying everything, her messages, Jules' comments, even my own doubts. I started wondering if I'd overreacted, if maybe Erica was just hurt and trying her best. But every time I tried to see it from that angle, I came back to the same point. If she really cared about me, wouldn't she respect my boundaries? That's the part that stuck with me. And about Jules? Yeah, that's a whole other thing. She and I had been friends since college. She's seen me through a lot: breakups, job changes, the awkward, what do I even do with my life years. But this time when I needed her to have my back, she didn't. It's not just that she disagreed with me. It was how she made me feel like I was in the wrong for not wanting something I never signed up for. We had a long conversation one night, after she sent a particularly guilt-trippy text saying, "You might regret shutting her out someday." That line hit me harder than I expected. Not because I believed it, but because it reminded me of every time someone tried to tell me how I should feel about being adopted. Like they knew better than me. So I asked her point blank, "Why is it so hard for you to accept that I don't want a relationship with her?" She paused, then said, "I just think people deserve second chances." I nodded, slowly. "And I think some people lose the right to ask for them." We haven't talked much since. Meanwhile, I kept circling back to one question. Why did I even do the DNA test in the first place? Honestly, I think I was just curious. There were nights I'd lie awake wondering if I had any genetic conditions to worry about. I'd look at my hands or my smile and wonder, who do I look like? There's something about not knowing your origins that leaves this quiet, unanswered hum in the background of your life. It's not loud, just persistent. But I wasn't looking for family. I already had one. Still, I found myself wondering what could have been. I started going down rabbit holes in my head, imagining what kind of person Erica was now, what her life looked like. Did she have photos of me as a baby? Did she regret what happened? Was she really trying to reconnect? Or was this more about easing her own guilt? One day, I caught myself thinking about her kid, my supposed little brother. I didn't even know his name. Didn't know if he was a teenager, an adult, or a 10-year-old. And part of me felt bad about that. Not guilty, exactly. Just sad, not for me, for him. He didn't ask to be part of this either. If I'm being real, there was a small part of me that might have been open to meeting him someday. But Erica forcing my hand, using him as a bargaining chip, that ruined any chance of that happening. And it wasn't just about her. It was about trust and respect and the right to say no without being shamed for it. I went back and looked through my old photo albums, the ones Michelle made for me over the years. Birthdays, holidays, random Tuesday nights eating mac and cheese in our pajamas. That was my real life. That was my real family. There was one photo that really stuck out. I must have been 8 or 9. I was holding a baseball glove that looked way too big for my hand, smiling so wide. My eyes were almost closed. My dad, Alan, was behind me, laughing, his hand on my shoulder. That photo wasn't just a memory. It was proof. Proof that I'd always been loved, that I'd always belonged. I realized then that I wasn't missing anything. And if Erica couldn't see that I was already whole, that I wasn't some puzzle piece floating through life, looking for a place to fit, then she didn't really know me at all. The thing about adoption is people assume it leaves a hole in you, that there's this aching void only your real family can fill. But for me, the only void came when someone tried to force their way in. A few weeks passed. The dust settled, or at least, I thought it did. Life moved forward slow, steady, the way it always does after something shakes you up. I buried myself in work, tried to hang out with friends minus Jules, obviously, and made a point to check in with my parents more. We'd sit on the porch some evenings just watching the sun dip below the trees, not even talking that much. It helped. Then one night, something random triggered a memory I hadn't thought about in years. I was scrolling through old photos on my phone trying to clear space. If I'm honest, and I stumbled across a picture I'd taken of our Christmas tree from back when I was a kid. The tree wasn't fancy, a little uneven, crooked near the top, but I saw the ornament, and everything came rushing back. I must have been 8. That was my second Christmas with Alan and Michelle. The first one felt surreal, like I didn't really know how to act or where I fit. But by the second, I'd loosened up a little. We went to this little tree farm just outside town. My dad's buddy owned it. And every year we'd go out there, bundled up in puffy jackets, boots crunching through snow. That year, they told me I got to choose the tree. I remember walking through the rows, completely overwhelmed. Every tree looked exactly the same. I thought if I picked the wrong one, I'd somehow ruin Christmas. I must have changed my mind 5 times, but they never rushed me. They let me take my time. My mom even made it into a game pretending each tree had a name and personality. Eventually, I just pointed at one and said, "That one." Didn't look much different from the rest. but my dad knelt down and said, "You heard the man," like I'd made the most important decision in the world. He sawed the tree down well, pretended to struggle with it, until I came over to help. Of course, I wasn't doing much, but he made it feel like I was carrying the whole thing on my back. When we got home, they opened this old wooden box full of ornaments, some from their childhood, some passed down from relatives. But then my mom handed me a little box with my name on it. Inside was this tiny wooden bear holding a red heart. The word family was carved into the heart. "This one's yours," she said, "because you made our family complete." Even now, writing that down, I feel a lump in my throat. That was the moment everything clicked for me. I wasn't just staying with people who were nice. I wasn't a guest in their home. I wasn't a temporary fix. I was theirs, fully, completely, and they were mine. Every year since, we've hung that bear up first. It's our little tradition. No matter how chaotic things get, it reminds me where I belong, who I am, and not in some bloodline kind of way. I mean deep, soul-rooted belonging, the kind you can feel in your bones. That memory hit harder than I expected. Not in a sad way, but in a grounding way. It reminded me why I'd drawn that boundary with Erica, why it felt so wrong to let her rewrite a chapter she wasn't even there for. I hadn't told my parents everything, not yet. I mean, they knew the big picture, the DNA test, Erica reaching out, me shutting it down. But they didn't know how much it had been weighing on me. So I sat down with them again one evening, right after dinner, and told them everything. The messages, the guilt, the fight with Jules, the weird emotions I couldn't quite name. They didn't say much at first. My mom just reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Then my dad leaned back and said, "You know, people talk about blood like it's everything, but I've seen people do right by strangers more than their own kin." That stuck with me. He was right. After that, I felt lighter, like I'd finally exhaled after holding my breath for weeks. I think what surprised me most was that I wasn't even mad at Erica. Not really. I was disappointed, yeah. Confused by her approach. But I didn't feel hate. I didn't even feel rage. Just this quiet, firm decision. This isn't the door I want to walk through. And maybe that's the part people don't get. They expect drama, yelling, tearful reunions, or angry rants. But sometimes it's just a simple no, a calm refusal, a decision to protect your peace and let the past stay buried where it belongs. At some point, I logged back into the DNA site. Curiosity got the better of me. I had no intention of messaging Erica again, but I wanted to see if there were any updates. She hadn't messaged again, and I didn't expect her to. But I did notice a new match, someone listed as a half-sibling, probably the same younger brother she mentioned before. I stared at the screen for a while. Part of me wondered, what if he's different? What if he just wants to know me, not trap me in something I didn't sign up for? But I didn't click on the message. I didn't reach out. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The truth is, I wasn't ready. And I didn't owe anyone an explanation for that. The season shifted. Summer drifted into early fall, the kind of slow, quiet change you only notice if you're paying attention. The air got crisper in the mornings, leaves started giving up their green, and school buses rumbled back into the neighborhood. Life kept moving, and I kept with it. But something in me had changed. Not in a big, dramatic way. It was subtle, like standing a little straighter, breathing a little deeper, being sure of your footing. I think when people hear stories like mine, they expect some explosive ending. A confrontation, a breakdown, a breakthrough. Something loud and cinematic. But real life doesn't always work like that. Sometimes, the ending is a quiet decision made in the stillness of your own mind. I never replied to Erica again. I didn't block her, but I didn't leave the door open either. I let silence speak for itself. I kept going to work, hanging out with people who did understand boundaries, and I started leaning into the things that made me feel grounded again. Long walks, journaling, even a little therapy, which honestly should be more normalized. I didn't go because I was broken. I went because I needed someone outside my world to say, "Yeah, It makes sense you feel that way. One session, my therapist asked, "What would you want Erica to understand if you could be sure she'd actually hear it?" I didn't answer right away. I thought about it for a long time. Then I said that I'm not mad. I just don't owe her my healing. That was the heart of it. She wanted connection, closure, maybe even redemption. But those things aren't gifts someone else can hand you. You have to earn them. And part of that means respecting the person you hurt enough to not demand a seat at their table. I've thought about her son, too, my half-brother. Still haven't messaged him. I don't know if I ever will. Not because I don't care, but because I'm careful about what I let into my life now. I spent too long carrying weight that wasn't mine to hold. I'm not doing that again. A few weeks ago, I was helping my dad in the garage. He's always got some half-finished project going: wood shelves, broken tools, stuff that looks like junk until he makes something useful out of it. We were working in silence, the way men sometimes do, just side by side. At one point, I looked at him and said, "You know I really do appreciate you and Mom, right?" He didn't look up, just kept sanding the edge of a board and said, "We know, but it's good to hear." It was such a simple exchange, but it meant the world to me. I think about that Christmas ornament a lot. That little wooden bear holding the word family. It still goes on the tree first every year, no exceptions. It's a reminder, not just of love, but of choice, of how people can show up for you without being asked, love you without condition, and raise you not because they have to, but because they want to. That's what family is to me. It's not blood. It's not who brought you into the world. It's who stood by you when you couldn't stand on your own. So here I am, at 25, not chasing missing pieces anymore. I don't need a real mom to complete some story arc. I don't need to rewrite history to make sense of my present. I have my people. I have peace. And that's enough. Maybe one day I'll open the door to the past again. Maybe I won't. But if I do, it'll be on my terms with a clear mind, a steady heart, and no expectations. Until then, I'll keep living the life I've built with the people who built it with me. No regrets, just truth. And that's all I really needed.